and it's headed my way. Oh, sometimes I grow so tired, but I know about one thing I got to do. Another time, the time is now. Sing my song, go around the world and I get my.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another installment of the Rambling Men Sports Podcast. I'm your co-host, Shane Price. As always, with me, James Connolly. So, I don't know about you, James. I feel like we got a pretty good show today. We got some NFL, MLB, NBA, you name it. But we're going to start off with NFL playoffs. Championship Sunday, we're going to start in the AFC side, where Jacksonville just lost to the New England Patriots 24-20. Or I guess I should say New England just edged out Jacksonville 24-20. I don't know about you, James. My biggest takeaway from this game is probably how I think New England won it more than Jacksonville gave it away. You know, when teams usually give up a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, we tend to say that team just gave it away. But I don't think that was the case, and I got two reasons why. Number one, Jacksonville boasted actually NFL's top rushing offense this season, but the Patriots defense, which was mediocre at stopping the run all year, held the Jaguars offense to just 39 rushing yards on 14 carries in the second half. Their longest run being just 14 yards, as opposed to 62 yards in the first half. So I give a lot of credit to Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick, and the New England defense. They really found a way to slow down that Jacksonville rushing attack and made Blake Bortles try to beat him with his arm, and I think that really affected him. And then my second point is that I actually feel like Jacksonville was pretty aggressive in the second half. They threw the ball. I have it here somewhere. They threw the ball 21 times, which is more than what they, 7 more plays than what they ran on the ground. And he was sacked twice. There's 2 more passing attempts. So, I don't know. I felt like they were actually pretty aggressive. I just think that was more New England made the right adjustments, and they just kept biding their time and, stuck to the game plan and ended up working out. Jacksonville was perfect for 95% of that game. And that's just not what it takes to win in New England. You got to play a complete 100% perfect game, and Jacksonville was just short.
Well, Shane, we definitely disagree on this one. I'm going to tell you why. Well, first of all, just my take on the game. The game actually really made me angry, to be honest, as an Eagles fan. Obviously, I wanted to play the Jaguars in the Super Bowl over the Patriots. Just an easier matchup, even though on paper I do think Philadelphia matches up better against the Patriots than the Jaguars, to be honest. But do you remember my picks last week? I didn't just want the Jaguars to win. I actually believed they were going to win. The Jags really had this game, like you said, for 95% of the game. They were on top. I wouldn't say they played a great game 95% of the time. Defense was playing well. They were running the ball. Blake Bortles was actually slinging it. And then the ultimate sin when it comes to playing the Patriots came to fruition, and that's conservativeness.
See, I disagree. I thought they were pretty aggressive.
We do agree on the fact that, when playing the Patriots, you got to step on their neck for 60 minutes, absolutely. But you saw in last year's Super Bowl that you can't let off the pedal no matter how much you're up on them.
See, but again, I feel like Atlanta was too aggressive. There's a difference there.
Now I have a couple reasons on why I think that they were a little too conservative, at least in the fourth quarter. But when you're up 10 points in the fourth quarter, you keep doing what got you up 10 points. I do understand that you have to run at that point, but we'll get to that in a second. Someone I was speaking to yesterday in the gym made such a great point. You're the Jaguars, okay? I know this game was for a trip to the Super Bowl, so technically you're not playing with house money, but what the hell do you really have to lose as the Jacksonville Jaguars? You're a perennial laughingstock. Like, pull out all the stops, throw the ball, run, make some creative plays in the run game at least, not a halfback dive to the A-gap 3 times in a row in the fourth quarter. Marone sort of did what the Falcons did in almost an opposite of a fashion, almost went too conservative with it, as opposed to, the Falcons going ultra aggressive. But I'll give you an example right here of the conservativeness. Who kneels with 2
I agree with.
seconds left in the first quarter? That's not only enough time to get a timeout. That's enough time a field goal. That's enough time to score a touchdown.
Yeah, that I agree with.
Period. You don't even try to maybe get a chunk play on the first yard or first play, and then if it goes wrong, and then okay, I understand, but you don't even try. A field goal there would have took them into halftime with so much momentum, could have really changed the whole course of the game. Conservative example, like a second example of their conservativeness would be second half. I understand you need to run the ball when you're up 2 scores in the fourth. Like I said, I get it, but you can't just run it to the A gap, a dive every play. You got to switch it up, do a counter, do a draw, do a stretch, do a pitch, do a read option. Blake Bortles can run. Why not run a read option one play? It would go for 20 yards. I'm telling you right now, because they were stacking the box for Leonard Fournette. Bill Belichick is really a master of clock management. I think it's honestly a very underrated aspect of his of his game. It seems like the clock just keeps going on forever when he's on offense, and it sucks down when he's on defense. But from a Jaguars perspective, honestly, they did lose this game, and I'm going to tell you why. You can't allow a 3rd and 18. They stopped that 3rd and 18 to Danny Amendola. The game is probably over. Just to be honest,
that was my other take on the game, was that Jacksonville's offense really had a hard time sustaining drives in the second half, and I think that defense was just gassed at the end of the game.
That I agree with, and I also agree with, or I also think that Bill Belichick is the master of halftime adjustments as well. I mean, teams never do as well second half as they do first half against the Patriots. But from the Patriots' perspective, I thought it was a very typical game for them. They don't have the talent that they usually do, so they just sort of hang around just enough. And then at the end of the game, like you said, when you're gassed, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick will just will turn it on. Tom Brady is the best football player of all time. I really think that is official. If there's time left on the clock, he's going to score. It's not he might. Good news is, for me at least, New England hasn't looked as impressive to me this year as a typical Patriots team, even though they did win 13 games. They're obviously a top 1 or 2 team in the NFL. I just mean compared to a typical Patriots team, I don't see this team really stacking up. They did come back down 10 in the fourth, but honestly, I think that was more bad coaching on Doug Marone's part than it was good coaching on Bill Belichick's part. Could be wrong in that, but my final takeaway is Jacksonville
we disagree on that.
Jacksonville really played not to lose instead of playing to win, and that's honestly exactly how you lose the Bill Belichick.
I don't know how you can say that. They threw the ball, play calling wise, they threw the ball, or they had 23. I shouldn't say passing attempts, but they had a pass play designed 23 times to just running the ball 14 times in the second half.
I understand that second half. How many of those were in the third quarter?
That's a good point. Because a lot of those passing attempts came on
the
final
when
drive.
I was watching that game, in my head I was saying, dude, do something else. Like, you have to do something else. Throw the ball. Like, Blake Bortles is having a great day. They don't have a great defense. Throw the ball. But, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. The next game is the one I really want to talk about.
Yeah, which I will let you do about 95% of the talking since it's your team.
Go, baby. I want to hear you first. Go ahead.
I mean, all I really have to say is I think my big takeaway from this game was pretty obvious. Any team coming off a game involving a miracle in the playoffs, we really should expect them to come out flat the next week. I said it last week that I thought they might come out flat in this game. And outside of that opening drive by the Vikings, that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, and this has been I should say, track record. Look at Green Bay last year after that emotional win over Dallas in the divisional round. They go to the NFC Championship, come out flat against Atlanta. And then, 2 years before that, Seattle and Pittsburgh had emotional last-second wins in the playoffs, and then they came out flat the following week in the divisional round. So I think this is a pattern, especially in the postseason. Since it's live or die. So that's just my takeaway. I just thought the Vikings were really flat, and Philly wanted it more. The rest is all you, man. Oh, I am so proud of the Eagles. I need to mention that. I'll get into more of my thoughts on the Vikings and my final thoughts.
Okay, awesome. So I just want to start by saying that, as an Eagles fan, we really don't have much to celebrate, at least, of the last 5 decades. But they had some great runs in the early 2000s, but honestly, in my opinion, that was more of a slap in the face than anything. I truly believe that 01 through 05 roster, the Philadelphia roster, was the best in the NFL. If it wasn't, it was the second. That should have
won a Super Bowl.
And they just couldn't get it done. So with that being said, this was the best game I've ever watched as an Eagles fan. Ever in my entire life, in my 24 years of life. That was pure domination. Honestly, a lot more people went Philadelphia's way than I thought in sports media. I honestly thought a lot of people were going to go with the Vikings, and a majority of people did go with the Vikings, but a lot more people than I thought went with Philly. But they absolutely dominated a team that I thought they were going to beat, obviously, from last week, but I don't think anyone really expected that. I was honestly really petrified after the first scoring drive. Like,
yeah, so was I.
It just chunked it down the field. It was like varsity versus JV. Eagles get the ball, punt. I don't think it was a 3-and-out, but they punt. Minnesota's driving again. And I'm like, this is exactly what Philly can't do, fall behind early. This team's not built to play from behind without Wentz. We're not going to be able to come back. Then here comes Chris Long, easily the most underrated free agent signing of our entire season. Patrick Robinson being a close second, but he had a strip sack against the LA Chargers earlier this year. We scored on that possession, and we ended up winning by a score. He had the strip sack to seal the game against the LA Rams against Jared Goff at the end of the game.
Is there a more underrated pass rusher in the NFL than Chris Long?
I don't think so. Listen, I'm not done yet.
Him and Jabal Sheard are two of the most underrated pass rushers.
He forced the errant throw from Case Keenum for that pick six from Patrick Robinson, and that completely changed the game for the rest of the night.
Yep.
And then not to mention later on, he recovers the fumble forced by Derek Barnett.
Yep, that was the game changer.
And by the way, Derek Barnett was an absolute beast this season. People wouldn't realize it by looking at his stat line. He finished with 5 sacks, forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 for a touchdown. But that was after a very slow start. But the guy only played 40% of his snaps. Only 40%. What I think they're going to do this season is release Vinny Curry, and he's going to start next year. If he gets 80% of the snaps, he's going to have double-digit sacks. I'll book that right now in 2019. But yeah, after that pick six, the Vikings just could not get back on track. The defense, who I told
for that great defense,
who I was told all week was so great, and I was telling people, away, they're not as great. Go look at the stats. They looked like they were running in tar on the field. They really did. They just looked slow. Everyone was open. We could run the ball, semi-successfully. I mean, I wouldn't say we were pounding the rock very well, but we when we needed to make a run, we really did, especially Jay Ajayi. But to me, the big story of the game was what everybody else thought was the big story of the game, and that was Nick Foles. I mean, say what you want about Nick Foles. I do think he's a starter in this league, but I do think he's a below-average one. But there's one thing that I can say about Nick Foles that other more talented QBs don't always have. Only a few of them have it. And he is not afraid of the moment. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to have a 100 quarterback rating or above in his first 3 playoff starts. Not Tom Brady, not Joe Montana. He's not afraid of the moment. He played that was the best game of his life, probably besides that 7-touchdown game that he had against the Raiders. And that was the biggest game of his life. I mean, not only did he play great that game, he played the second half of Atlanta. Lights out. Look at second half stats against Atlanta when we were down, when we were losing by a point coming out of halftime. So his last 6 quarters of football, he's completing like 75% of his passes for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, if he can carry that momentum into the Super Bowl, we'll get into that later. But he really ran to the offense to perfection. He looked like Carson Wentz out there running those RPOs. That can cause any defense fits if you run it perfectly, because he can do either play. You defend the run, he can pull it out and he can throw it, and vice versa. But big props to the entire team. Offense, defense, special teams played an A+ game. I honestly was almost in tears. I was at the Philadelphia Eagles bar in Baltimore with a million Eagles fans around me, just jumping on tables and everything. It was insane. But I want to give a shout out to one player on the Eagles in particular. And I want to ask you, Shane, you probably won't know, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Out of everyone on the Eagles, who do you think in particular deserves an individual shout-out from that game besides Nick Foles?
Give me this. Offense or defense?
Offense.
Torrey Smith.
No. Even though Smith stepped up.
Yeah.
Torrey Smith stepped up. Our backup tackle, Big V, Halapoulivaati Vaitai.
Yeah.
When Spears went down, everyone in sports media, including myself, believed that had potential to be devastating to the Eagles Super Bowl hopes. Devastating. I mean, to be honest, it was, But Big B played the game of his life and the biggest game of his life, very similar to Nick Foles. Lined up across from Everson Griffin for 4 quarters. And Big V bullied him. I was watching, I follow the Eagles on Bleacher Report, and I look at, all the articles and everything, and I watched, this article just break down. I mean, he literally bullied an all-pro pass rusher, across from him. And Nick Foles really had a force field around him the whole night. I think he was only sacked one time. I always expect great play from the rest of the line, but left tackle was supposed to be a weakness. He did more than one his own. He held his own. He won the matchup against an all-pro.
He has held his own this postseason run.
Absolutely. And if Big V, with that being said, if Big V, continues into ascension and has a great offseason, he might be the Eagles' starting left tackle of the future, because I'm not moving Lane Johnson to left tackle from the Eagles. Why?
He's too good on the right side.
Good on the right side, and that's where all the great pass rushers line up.
Mm-hmm.
He was going against Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. I mean, he went against everybody this year, and he shut them all down. But lastly, I just want to address one more thing. I think you'll get a little kick out of this. I want to address the media shitstorm that Philadelphia fans are getting for their treatment of the Vikings fans. I have to address this. I get it. Philly fans are notoriously mean and obnoxious, but that's the point. I don't get what you're not understanding about this. That's the point of home field advantage. That's what it is. Was throwing shit at fans, a little excessive? Yeah. Was saying, F Millie a little crude, the 99-year-old Vikings fan? Sure, but who cares? It's playoff football. What did the Vikings fans suspect in the NFC Championship in Philadelphia? Hugs? You're not going to get a warm welcome from the team. You go to the Art Museum steps, you do the skull chant on the Rocky steps, you dress up the Rocky statue in Vikings garb. You had to know that was coming. This is home field advantage. You don't want to go to Philly with another team's jersey on, and that's on purpose. They don't want you there. That's what home field advantage is. No, the fans aren't nice to visitors, and I want to keep it that way. I heard from multiple media members, not just Philadelphia media members, but that was the loudest they've ever heard a stadium ever. And that stadium only holds about 5,000 people. It's not that big of a stadium. You could hear the EAGLES chant in Jersey.
Yeah.
I said an article.
Dude, I was doing that chant at home.
So I wanted to shout out the Eagles fans. Keep being assholes. And I hope this team brings it home for us because you guys are assholes.
I will say this. I had heard my entire life how obnoxious Philadelphia Eagles fans are. And I met you. Obviously, you're a great guy. And then we go to Philly for the draft in last April. And I'll be totally honest, those fans cracked me up the entire time I was there. I found them so entertaining. Maybe it was just because I was a Green Bay fan. Philly, Green Bay, that's not a rivalry. It's nothing.
Yeah. If you're not the Redskins, the Giants, or the Cowboys, and we're not playing you, you would like us as fans.
I thought y'all were incredibly entertaining.
It's football. Philly fans know about football, and that's why I like them. They're not a clueless fan base. So
this brings us to a poll question.
So,
I really want to get your take on this. Which has been the most valuable component for Philadelphia during this postseason run? Nick Foles, Doug Peterson, the defense, what is it?
What do you think? I want to hear your take.
I'm going to say, I think it's the defense. That defense has been lights out the last 2 weeks.
7.5 points in the playoffs. That is at home, though. That is at home. So that's not going to be the case in Minnesota.
Points.
Yeah. 15-7.
10-7.
No. The Vikings scored 7 points.
And then the Falcons scored 10.
So, yeah.
Just 17 points.
Yeah, 17
Either
points.
Way, I mean, that's...
Yeah, 8.5 points at home. Yeah. Sorry, 8.5 points. But okay, defense. Obviously, you could give the credit to any of them. But last season, early this year, I never thought these words would come out of my mouth. But it's honestly Doug Peterson. Obviously, from an X's and O's standpoint, since Wentz went down, he's done a hell of a job with all the injuries, with Nick Foles, with the game planning. But more so from a leadership and a motivation perspective. This team never wavered in the face of all the adversity they faced all year, and that's because of Doug Peterson. This team is so confident headed into this game, and that's something you really need playing the Patriots. They can be a little bit intimidating playing a team that's won that much. This team is confident. They're very confident, especially after waxing the Vikings last week.
This Philly team, I don't think will bat an eye in the Super Bowl, and this is an excellent
segue. They're not gonna be afraid. And Nick Foles is not going to be afraid out there. I'm telling you now.
This is an excellent segue to our next topic. We're just going to do a quick preview of Super Bowl 52. And I'll be totally honest. if Minnesota had won that game, I do think on their own home field, I'm not so sure. I think Minnesota would have been intimidated by New England.
I think they would have beat the Patriots at home. I said that if Minnesota beat Philly, they were going to beat no matter who they played.
So maybe they wouldn't have been intimidated on their own home field, but
home field advantage in the Super Bowl would just be, it's not fair. That team would win. It just would.
But Philly, I don't think Philly is going to bat an eye. They're going to come out there. I think they are ready to dethrone the Patriots.
And whether that'll be enough to win, I honestly don't know yet. But I don't think they're going to come out and get, they're not going to come out flat. They're going to come out ready to play. And Tom Brady's going to be on his ass a lot of that game. I said, I don't know if that'll be enough to win. We'll see.
I mean, after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, this was the Super Bowl I wanted to see. It just sucks that Carson Wentz got hurt.
Yeah.
Then it really would have been a fun Super Bowl to watch. But Nick Foles, he's playing lights out. He's playing so well. If he can bring it one more game, I think Philly has an excellent shot.
I know. But quick Super Bowl preview. Obviously, like Shane said, we'll get more into depth into it next week. That'll probably be almost an exclusive Super Bowl show, obviously. But this is a rematch of the 2004 Super Bowl. Sorry to get back into the Eagles' history here, but Donovan McNabb lost that game for us. 4 turnovers, all McNabb's fault, and we lost by 3 points late. So, do the math. That was the better team lost that game. But this matchup's unreal. The Eagles honestly match up perfectly with the Patriots, though when playing the Patriots, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick can make matchups mean, almost nothing.
I was just thinking – you go ahead, but I was just thinking this the other day.
But when I look at this game, if Philly can stay aggressive the whole game, they have a good chance to win this game without Wentz, without Peters, without Sproles, without Hicks, without Maragos, without all those good players. Tom Brady's kryptonite is not a pass rush. That's where people are wrong on Tom Brady. Tom Brady's kryptonite is a pass rush up the middle.
Yep.
If you get a pass rush on the outside, that's what he wants because he's going to step up in the pocket and he's going to kill you down the field.
Yep.
There isn't a better defensive tackle duo in the NFL than Fletcher Cox and Timmy Jernigan, so he's going to have it up the middle all night. Now, we don't match up well against Gronk, but nobody matches up well against Gronk.
Malcolm Jenkins is going to
Malcolm Jenkins is going to have the game of his life, and honestly, our corners are susceptible to being beat with big plays. But I'm going to tell you right now, Patrick Robinson will shut Danny Amendola down. He's perfect with the short, quick slot receivers. He's shut them down all year. He's graded perfectly against them. So I'm not worried about Danny Amendola. I'm not worried about Chris Hogan, and Brandon Cooks matches up perfectly with Ronald Darby. So I honestly think we match up decently on the outside. Not a lot of talent out there, but as far as just, who matches up well with who as far as size and skill set goes. But on the other side of the ball, the Eagles match up well again. The Eagles can pound the ball, on that poor rush defense. Their pass rush should make no noise against the Eagles' offensive line. And the Eagles are a great screen team. Mm-hmm. Doug Peterson calls them up at opportune times, and the complete lack of speed at the linebacker position can be exposed for the Patriots in that screen game. Obviously the Patriots have the advantage at the two biggest positions, and that's QB and coach, but should be a fantastic game. Defending Brady's going to be difficult, but non-mobile quarterbacks, tend to play poorly against Philadelphia, which I said would happen against Matt Ryan. Obviously, that's 2 different quarterbacks, but Philly's D-line ruins the structure of plays, and Tom Brady doesn't play that well out of structure. He's a very, pretty structured quarterback. He's not a Carson Wentz or an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson who can, duck out of the pocket and still make a 30-yard pass. I mean, Tom Brady will maybe do that, a few times this season, but it's not his forte. We're not going to make picks this week. We'll save those for next week. But honestly, even if we had to make picks this week, I don't know who I'm going to take in this game. I really don't.
I could honestly flip a coin. But to piggyback off what you were just saying, I was thinking about it this week, and I was thinking, Philly is kind of the same team as Jacksonville, except I think they're better in areas where Jacksonville isn't. Defensively, are they better than Jacksonville? I would say no, but they're not a huge drop-off from Jacksonville.
We might be more well-rounded, though, on defense.
I would agree. I think they're better in the defensive front, and they're definitely deeper all around defensively, which is going to be huge. Because like I said, that's why Jacksonville lost. I think that defense lacked depth, and they were gassed, and Philly's not going to be able to do that. They're going to be able to rotate bodies.
You know what else is a huge advantage? And, I haven't heard anybody talk about it. We have 2 members of the Patriots Super Bowl winning team last year. You're going to tell me we can't get any insight at all? Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount are Super
Blunt,
Bowl
that's the other one.
2016 Super Bowl champions with the Patriots. And I don't know if you saw this. LeGarrette Blount put out a statement today. He doesn't fuck with anyone on the Patriots. Sorry to curse on here. He said, ain't no friends, ain't no homies, none of that. He's ready for this game, and I can't wait for it. It's going to be sick.
And then so offensively, I think it's they're really better than Jacksonville. They don't. I wouldn't say they have a better run game, but it's a decent run game. They have a better offensive line. They got better weapons on the perimeter. And then I think Nick Foles is playing better than Blake Bortles right now.
Who's going to cover Zach Ertz on the Patriots? I mean, you could say the same thing for Gronk, and Gronk is probably a bigger mismatch, but the Patriots don't defend tight ends well at all.
Yeah. And they don't have a very good pass rush, and Philly's offensive line has really stepped up this postseason. This should be a really good game. I know,
it should. I'm excited. It's going to give me a heart attack.
Oh, I can't imagine how you're going to handle it.
I hope it ends up being like the Minnesota game one way or the other, so I just don't have to sit there and have my blood pressure, as high as it's going to be the whole game.
Well, this is going to be a long 2 weeks for you. There's no football this week.
Yeah, and that's sort of there is football this week. The Pro Bowl is this week, and that actually is perfect. It goes right into the poll question. Are you going to watch the Pro Bowl?
I always say I'm not, but I always end up watching it. So I'm going to say no, but Sunday night, who knows, I'll probably end up watching it.
Not watching it. Football is a physical sport, and you can't play a physical sport halfway, so it's just not really entertaining to watch. So,
it's all right. Sometimes it's all right. But
I like the skills competition. It's way cooler.
Yeah, that's fun. When is that?
Saturday, I think.
Saturday? Okay. I'll be busy in Morgantown Saturday, but we get into that later.
California.
And so NFL coaching carousel. There have been 3 head coaching hires this week. The Giants hired Pat Shurmur, Titans hired Mike Vrabel, and Arizona Cardinals hired Steve Wilkes. Out of all of these, the one I really like most, James, is Pat Shurmur to the Giants. I'm not sure if I've said it on the podcast, but I've definitely written it down somewhere that I feel like he was the most underrated candidate this coaching carousel. Just he did a great job, I thought, in Minnesota. It definitely didn't show in the NFC Championship. But I felt like he's done a great job in Minnesota as a play caller and with the development of Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. So I look forward to seeing what he can do with the Giants and Eli Manning and probably whichever quarterback they take at number 2 overall in the draft. What about you?
As an Eagles fan, I actually love the Pat Shurmur hire. Giants went safe. It's not a bad hire. It's just a safe hire. It's not a Sean McVay type of hire. You know what I mean? And that's what I was afraid of him getting. Shurmur doesn't scare me as a coach. He is a great offensive coordinator. He really is, and we'll see what he can do with the rookie quarterback that he's going to take at number 2. But honestly, I think the Mike Vrabel hire was just horrible. Unless he hires a fantastic.
That's exactly what I have here.
If he assembles a really good staff, then obviously he can just be the overseer. But the Titans will be worse with Vrabel than with Malarkey, in my opinion.
I just don't know what they were doing. I mean,
the Titans needed a McVay Peterson type of coach to bring out Mariota's unique skill set. But the Steve Wilkes hire seemed very typical of like Arizona. They're just going to be fairly irrelevant. Hovering around.
My take on this was this kind of came out of left field. Nobody knew who Steve Wilkes was except Carolina.
I'm not sure who he is, so I'm not going to comment on him.
He's the Carolina defensive coordinator.
May do well.
So I think Arizona just looked at it and said, we don't have a franchise quarterback. We're not getting, the top guys on the market. And I think they just said, let's just go with a guy we like, not a guy, who everyone else is going to like. Let's just go with the guy we like since we're probably not going to be competitive next year. And they did that. So I credit them a little bit, and we'll see if it works out.
You luck out with the random hire. Look at Doug Peterson. Our first 2, he was our 3rd choice when we hired him. We wanted McAdoo, not a good coach, and Adam Gase, who I think is a decent coach, but I honestly don't think he's a better coach than Doug Peterson. And I used to be a Doug Peterson hater. I didn't think he was a good coach, but he's done so well.
I remember telling you I thought Doug Peterson was a good hire.
You did. Did. Okay, so moving on from football, we'll get back into a little. Oh no, actually, I wanted to make one more comment on the NFL hires. Todd Haley got hired as the offensive coordinator of the Browns.
Yep.
I think that's laughable. I said on this podcast before that I think Todd Haley is a very bad play caller. We'll see what he can do with a rookie quarterback, but terrible hire, terrible.
Yeah, I just don't think one, I think Cleveland did this, I think, just to poach someone who's been in a well-run organization.
Plus he was in a division rivals team.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
so I think that's why they chose him. But, I mean, he's had histories of being a cancer in a locker room and not getting along with players. He wasn't talking to Ben Roethlisberger the last few weeks of the season. So this doesn't make a ton of sense. And, yeah, as a play caller and offensive coordinator, I don't think he's that good. I don't think he realizes what type of personnel he has. I mean, there's no reason why Pittsburgh shouldn't be top 5 scoring offense every year, and they weren't under him. So that I don't get it. I like Cleveland. I wish they had made a better hire.
Moving on to baseball, there was 4 people inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame yesterday. It was honestly a really stacked class.
Yes.
First of all, the 4 people that got in were you need 75% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame. Chipper Jones got in with 97% of the vote. Very, very
That's
high. Honestly, higher than I thought he'd get.
Yeah.
Even though I do think he is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
That's the highest second highest I've ever seen. King Griffey Jr. was at 99.3 or something.
Agreed. But Vladimir Guerrero also got in at 92%. Jim Thome got in at 89%, and Trevor Hoffman with 80%. Like I said, ridiculously stacked class.
I was just going to say, none of these really surprised me. Chipper Jones was a no-brainer. Vladimir Guerrero was a no-brainer. He was probably, of these guys, so underrated as a player.
That's so funny. I have that in my notes.
He didn't play nearly as long as these other guys, and he put up almost the exact same numbers. Trevor Hoffman, he should have been in earlier, but the way the voting works, the writers aren't going to give a reliever a first or second ballot. And then Jim Thome was, in my opinion, the biggest surprise. I'm not surprised he got in his first ballot. I'm surprised he got almost 90% of the vote. I thought he would get in, but this dude, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy. He is, I think, 6th all-time in home runs, but he played 22 years, and so I like Jim Thome. I was a little surprised he got in with that many votes.
All right, so first of all, Chipper Jones deserves to be first ballot. Like I said, I thought that was a little high. He's a top 2 or 3 switch hitter of all time. Best switch hitter of all time is Mickey Mantle. We can argue for second and third between Pete Rose and Chipper Jones. Second, Vlad Guerrero. Like I said, he is probably one of the most underrated baseball players of all time. Absolutely. The most underrated baseball player of all time, first of all, is Ichiro Suzuki.
I won't disagree with that.
He has like 5,000 career hits if you add the Japanese and MLB. He has like 30. He has like 4,000 hits in the MLB, and he didn't even get into the league until he was like a pro baseball player overseas for years. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that later. People always associate Vlad with his hitting numbers. Great reason. Batting .318 lifetime is absolutely absurd. Yeah. I honestly didn't know his career average was that high. That is ridiculous. But people forget he probably had the strongest arm of any right fielder I've ever seen.
I've seen
him throw so many people out from right field. He had a freaking cannon. Number 3, Jim Thome. Jim Thome is one of my favorite players of all time.
I was going to say, he better be. He played for the Phillies.
He's an all-time great Philly, but, dude, you crush 600-plus home runs, you're just going to get in. That's just how it is.
I'm not saying
maybe a little high.
He should have been in. I was just shocked he was 90%.
Agreed. And then, Trevor Hoffman, most career saves. You get the most career anything, you deserve to be in the Hall.
I was looking at this Hall of Fame class. This is absolutely loaded. We've seen now 2 Hall of Fame classes, including 4 players, which I'm not sure that's ever happened before, prior to 2015 when it was Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, John Smoltz, and Craig Biggio. And now we've had that.
No-brainers.
Yeah, and then now we've had that twice in 3 or 4 years. But I was just looking at it. Like we've said, all of these guys were no-brainers. But between them, these guys combined for 29 All-Star Game appearances, 2 league MVPs, 11 Silver Sluggers, and a 2-time saves leader, and the all-time, I believe it's all-time saves leader, correct? Or is that Mariano Rivera?
No, Trevor Hoffman.
Is it Trevor Hoffman? So just absolutely ridiculous. But my biggest takeaway, there wasn't really a surprise with this Hall of Fame class, in my opinion. So there wasn't really a big surprise. So my biggest takeaway, like I said, is going to be that Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds kind of stagnated in their voting. So they increased their voting percentage this year, a combined 5.8%, which is still going up, but compared to what they were doing, the previous 2 years, they combined an average of 8.3 and 8.5%. the previous 2 years, and then they kind of stagnated, which they did go up, and I just look at it, and I'm not willing to say that they're not going to get in, which they shouldn't be in. That's my opinion. But next year is going to be a big year for them. If they have another year where it suggests they only increase about 2 or 3% in the voting, I think it's safe to say they won't get in.
Yeah. So,
real quick, who do you think gets in next year?
What'd you say?
Who do you think gets in next year? I sent you all that stuff. You might not have it with you. I do.
I already know who's going to get in. Edgar Martinez is going to get in.
Yeah, he should be.
Martinez is going to get in. Mariano Rivera is going to get in. And probably Andy Pettit's going to get in.
See, I said Edgar Martinez should get in. I'm really cheering for him. It's his last year on the ballot. He's at 70.4% of the vote, though, this year. He every guy that has been
in his last year, his last year of eligibility, he'll get that 5%.
I was just about to say, the guy who every year, as far as I know, the guy who was just left out made it the next year. So he should be in.
They'll give him the benefit.
And then Mike Mussina is a guy I think will get in next year. He bumped up 11.7% from last year. And like I said, I did say the guy who was first left out of the Hall of Fame 1 year makes it the next year. Same goes for the second guy. So those two should get in. I think Mariano Rivera gets in.
So that brings us to a poll question. And I honestly think it's a good one. Do Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds, who are obviously two all-time greats, deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely not.
Why?
When you're linked to steroids, you should not be considered for the Hall of Fame, in my opinion.
Agree. Like, I'm going to say no in a little bit different of a vein than you. From a talent perspective, these guys were both good enough to get into the Hall of Fame, steroids or not. But we just can't. I know this sounds a little...
I think both of these dudes were Hall of Famers before they ever juiced.
Absolutely. But this sounds a little cliche and corny, but I'm so serious. You can't set an example like that for kids. You know, children can't grow up thinking it's okay to cheat the game, cheat your teammates, cheat the league by rewarding cheaters with Hall of Fame plaques.
Yeah.
So the answer is honestly just no. You can't reward cheating. You just can't do it. So,
what do you think of Kurt Schilling? That's one dude I've been cheering for to get in ever since he got on the ballot. And this year he did increase his voting. He's at 51.2%.
How many years has he been on the ballot?
This is just his 6th year.
He'll probably get in.
I think so too. I was just about to. I have a note here. In Edgar Martinez's 6th year on the ballot, he was at 27%, and and he just finished up his 9th year at 70.4%. So I think the longer this goes on, Schilling is still on the ballot. People are going to be like, "Why is Schilling still on the ballot? That dude should be in." And then he'll get in like his 8th, 9th, 10th year on the ballot.
Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
but
so
that brings us to our next poll question. Who do you think is most likely to be a Hall of Famer their first year on the ballot? Mariano Rivera, Roy Halladay, or Todd Helton?
I think it's easily Mariano Rivera. There are some names on here that I think could get in. Mariano Rivera is a no-brainer. Roy Halladay could.
Roy Halladay is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Do you? I don't know.
Go back. He was the best pitcher in the league for like 8 years.
I know.
Go back, look at
a
it.
Stud. But he could get in next year just
He
because
has a no-hitter in the World Series.
What's that?
He has a no-hitter in the World Series, too.
Wow. Well, I knew he was great. I'm just not sure he gets in his first year. But I think he might, given the fact he died this year, maybe people feel some sympathy. He gets a lot of votes. Todd Helton, I love Todd Helton.
Todd Helton was a beast for the Rockies
I love
back
Todd
in the day.
Helton. I really hope he gets in first ballot, but I don't think he will.
Nah, he won't. He
Andy
definitely
Pettit, maybe. I don't think so, though. Lance Berkman, I doubt it. Roy Oswalt will get in probably, but it won't be his first year. But no, I think Mariano Rivera is easily the answer.
I agree. Mariano Rivera has the single greatest pitch of all time, that cutter. He'll probably be up around 90-something% his first ballot.
Yeah, I won't be shocked at all.
So just wanted to recap the poll questions from last week. So first question was, who is more to blame for the Saints' defensive collapse on the final play against Minnesota? 63% of people said the coaching staff, and only 37% of people said Marcus Williams, which honestly surprises me.
Yeah.
I thought it was that's funny. I said it was 60-40 coaching staff. Marcus Williams.
I think we both said that. But yeah, I know you did.
So, who do you think is the biggest reason for Jacksonville's success this season?
This is one of the biggest surprises.
Yeah. Wow, 45% of people said the players, and only 44% of people said Tom Coughlin. I like that though. I can agree with that.
Doug Marrone getting no love at 11%.
Yeah, no love.
I think he's a really underrated coach.
Which quarterback matchup do you think will be the most intriguing for Super Bowl 52? And Brady and Foles got the leading vote, and that's what the people got. So
that was a little bit surprising. I didn't think people would choose Brady and one of the guys from the NFC, but hey, that's what we're getting.
Yeah, surprising. Poll question 4 is Kevin Sumlin a good fit for the University of Arizona? We got 50 votes on this one, so I think everyone for voting. 96% of those 50 people said yes, though. So pretty safe to go there. Do you think the Steelers made the right decision by firing Todd Haley? And 70% of the people said yes, 30% of the people said no. Honestly, I feel like that number should be a little higher. But moving on here, almost finishing up the show here, guys. Got a couple more things for you. Moving into some NBA action, Milwaukee fired their head coach, Jason Kidd. What's your take on that, Shane?
I'm not quite sure what Milwaukee's thinking here. Do the Bucks have higher expectations that the rest of sports fans don't have? I mean, is the front office just sitting, is the front office just sitting around in Milwaukee thinking this team should be competing for a championship? Because I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, they do. I mean, it's not like they have a loaded roster like Golden State, Oklahoma City, or Cleveland. They have 2 20-point scorers in Giannis Antetokounmpo, however you pronounce his last name, and Chris Middleton, but neither are great shooters. Outside of that, they have a bunch of average to decent players like Eric Bledsoe, Malcolm Brogdon, and Greg Monroe. This isn't a great roster. I'm not sure what Milwaukee thought they should be doing. I thought Jason Kidd was doing a great job. Now, I don't want to say a great job, but he was doing a fine job, I thought. And then when I look at the standings, Milwaukee's in 8th place, so they're still slated to make the playoffs if the season ended today, which is a little underperforming. When I picked this season, I had them as more of a 4 or 5 seed. So
the East is better than I thought, though, too.
So, I guess they disappointed a little bit, but keep in mind, they've been without Jabari Parker. He can't stay healthy. That was the dude they drafted to be their franchise player, and the guy can't stay healthy. So the Bucks better have a replacement on their mind, because I'm not sure if anyone except Jason Kidd could have done a better job, except 2 or 3 coaches, one of them being Brad Stevens. And I think that's what got him fired, was how Brad Stevens is doing so well with not as much talent in Boston.
Yeah, I was actually, super surprised with it, too. The Bucks are above 500.
Yeah.
It's still really early in the season. It's not even the All-Star break yet. The Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, really wanted Jason Kidd to stay. He actually apparently contacted his agent to, plead with the front office and the organization not to fire him. But
is that his cue to leave, do you think?
I don't know. He's definitely going to leave when he can be a free agent. He doesn't want to be a Buck.
I'm not sure when his contract is up. I just think that's interesting.
But I do disagree with the firing, unless they can replace him with somebody better.
If they got somebody on their mind, But
I think it was our first podcast. I said, somebody got fired, and I'm like, it's only a good idea to fire someone if you have a better replacement. Otherwise, you're just spinning tires.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing, I just want to bring this up because I think it's so funny. I always remember Coach Jason Kidd, not player Jason Kidd, as the guy who purposely told the player to run into him when he had the water in his hand. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the NBA.
He was out of timeouts towards the end of the game, and they caught him saying, "Hit me," to one of his players to spill water on the floor. Dude, you've never seen that? Go watch that. It's the funniest thing ever.
I have not seen that.
Shane, they caught him so blatantly on camera that it was just it's so funny of a video.
Did
Please
they
go
find
watch
him or
that
something?
after this. But that brings us to, I think it's our last poll question here. Yeah, last poll question. Did Milwaukee make the right decision by firing Jason Kidd? I said not sure. I don't think Jason Kidd was a terrible coach.
Yeah.
His players loved him, which does go a long way, especially in the NBA. But for me, it's going to just depend on his replacement. It's probably going to be a bad firing, though, depending, because I don't think there's too many people out there to get, unless they can convince somebody to come from college. I think maybe D'Antoni, being up there in Michigan already, D'Antoni, from Michigan State, I think he might be
you mean Tom Izzo?
To make a big splash, you know what I mean, as far as a head coaching hire.
I think he means Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo. I'm thinking of the football coach.
D'Antoni's in Houston. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go ahead and say no just because I'm not sure who they're going to get. There might be somebody out there on the market when the season wraps up. But like I said, there's only 2 or 3 coaches in the NBA I think that could do a better job than what Kidd was doing. One of them is Brad Stevens. One is Greg Popovich. And maybe Steve Kerr. I mean, I don't know. There's only 2 or 3 of them, though.
Agreed.
So then this brings us to our next topic. LeBron James gets to 30,000 career points, which is just the 7th player in NBA history to do that. I'm not a LeBron James fan at all, James, but I have to tip my cap to him on this one. He joins Elite Company with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, and Dirk Nowitzki of all people.
Dirk.
I love Dirk. I'm just shocked he was at 30,000. Just absolutely fantastic honor. Just good for LeBron, even though I'm not a huge fan.
I just want to take the time to say, LeBron James is the most complete basketball player of all time. He's not a pure scorer, and he'll end up being a top 1 to 3 scorer of all time, probably number 2. I don't know if he'd get as many points as Kareem. He's not a point guard. He's going to end up with more assists than Magic Johnson. He can guard 1 through 5 on the floor effectively. He can spread the ball. He can rebound. And now, all of a sudden, he can shoot.
Yep.
Out of nowhere. He can shoot the ball now. It's crazy. Go look at his shooting percentage. But great accomplishment. I think we should all step back and admire what LeBron is doing, but mostly from a durability perspective, not from a statistical perspective, even though that's obviously marvelous as well. But every single player in the NBA that's good has an injury, has the injury bug. All of them. Every single one cannot stay healthy except LeBron James. And LeBron James has probably triple the minutes of all of them. I don't understand it. He's been playing in the NBA since he was 18 years old. LeBron James will probably end up on the Mount Rushmore of sports, not of basketball, of sports when it's all said and done. And honestly, I think we'll do a Mount Rushmore for all the major sports on this podcast one day, and then maybe a full sports one. When we have a lot less to do in the summer, I actually think that'd be a really cool
That actually
segment.
would be fun to do.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving on. We're staying with basketball, but we're going down to college a little bit for our Mountaineer Minute. James, our Mountaineers have a huge game this week against Kentucky. College game day is coming to Morgantown. I'm going to Morgantown for the game.
That's awesome.
I spent $150 on a ticket in the upper level. I think all the way in the upper level.
No way.
Yeah, the Coliseum's going to be rocking. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say West Virginia needs to pick up the intensity. Yes. We really need Press Virginia back if we're going to make a run, at the Final Four this year, or even make a run at the Big 12, which is absolutely stacked. I don't know who the best team in the Big 12 is. I think there's 5 teams that are all really good. I do see the Mountaineers winning against Kentucky at home.
I do too.
Winning at the Coliseum is very, very hard. Very hard.
Yeah, I was actually looking at it today. Since we started Press Virginia in 2014, we have a record of 8-1 when we play on Saturday following a game on Monday. So with 4 days rest, we're 8-1 in those games. Our last loss coming in January 2015. So the odds are in our favor. What's that?
Who was that game against?
It was against Iowa State at home. I remember that game. I went to it.
Yeah, they were pretty good back then.
Yep.
Is Iowa State any good right now?
No, I think they're last in the conference.
I didn't think so.
Right.
This is just our final thoughts. We're about to close the show here, but I want to hear your final thoughts for the week, Shane.
You want me to go first?
We never exchange ideas before we do this. We just sort of let each other have it here.
So I'll back up a little bit. I was too close to the camera. So I got this inspiration from Colin Cowherd this week, where I am going to address.
Hold on, before you even start. Colin Cowherd used to be my favorite. I hate him. I don't like him anymore. I don't like him. I've been listening to him because before I would only listen to him intermittently, and now I listen to him every single day, and he changes his opinion to based on what's happening at the time, and you won't notice it unless you listen to him every day.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, he said the Patriots, they were not going to win it this year. He's just like, they look dysfunctional. Everyone looks out of whack. They're not going to win it this year. Now he's acting like there's no possible way they should lose. He gave New England more credit for being down 10 points to the Jaguars at home than Philly credit for being up 30 points when it could have been 40 points at home. That makes no sense. But whatever. I don't like him anymore. I just wanted to say that. But go ahead with your final thoughts. That was my 1A final thought. I got
Well,
1B.
all right, well, mine will be on the NFC side, and I got this inspiration from him this week. Dear Minnesota Vikings, I hope you enjoyed your fantastic season because I have so much pleasure in saying these words. The championship window closed. Now, this might have some bias because I'm a Green Bay fan.
Oh, it did.
But I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's that ridiculous to say. The Vikings won 14 games this season when the NFC, was without Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz, who were both having MVP caliber seasons before getting injured, especially Wentz. And Minnesota, who usually has to face Aaron Rodgers twice, only had to face him for 2 possessions. So then Matt Ryan took a step back with a new offensive coordinator. Cam Newton struggled again. Jared Goff took a huge step forward, but was basically still a rookie with a new head coach. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't get a full season in the NFC as a starting quarterback. Not to mention, Dallas, Seattle, and the Giants were all depleted with injuries and imploded. Let's be honest, the Super Bowl was Minnesota's for the taking this year after one of the luckiest plays I've ever seen to beat the Saints in the divisional round. All they had to do was go into Philly, which is a tough place to play, but beat a team with a backup quarterback and win. I mean, and then you have the Super Bowl at your home field. Never been done before, and they fell flat on their face. And then people are saying, this is a young team. They'll be in this position next year.
No.
James, I'm not so sure, man.
They got 3 quarterbacks, and that means you got 0 quarterbacks.
First, Minnesota will have a first-place schedule next year and a target on their back. Look what that did to Dallas this year.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz are going to have an entire offseason to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Ryan has a whole offseason to work out the kinks with his offensive coordinator. Cam Newton just got an upgraded offensive coordinator. The NFC West quarterback coaching tandems of Jared Goff, Sean McVay, and Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan have an entire offseason together. Dallas, Seattle, and the Giants should be able to reload this year in a decent NFL draft. And then lastly, Minnesota has no quarterback on roster in 2018. All of them are free agents. So they're going to have to pick one of those guys to come back, and I don't think they're convincing 2 to come back.
And like you said, the NFC is going to be stacked next year. You thought they were stacked this year. Everybody got hurt. They're going to be stacked
and
next year.
The word I read today was that they're looking to bring Teddy Bridgewater back, a dude who hasn't played in 2 years.
He wasn't good when he played.
Exactly. I've said that to you.
He wasn't good. Go ahead.
28 touchdowns, 21 interceptions in 2 years. That's all I'm going to say on Teddy Bridgewater. Also, my last point. These are the players on the Minnesota's roster who are about to be free agents within the next 3 years. Jerick McKinnon, they're probably not bringing him back anyway, but he did have a good year. Anthony Barr, free agent next year. Eric Kendricks, free agent next year. Danielle Hunter, free agent next year. Stephon Diggs, free agent next year. Then Kyle Rudolph is a free agent the following year. Latavius Murray is a free agent the following year. Andrew Sendejo is a free agent the following year. Wow. And Trey Waynes is a free agent the following year.
Basically, they got to re-sign the entire team before 2020.
So, and trust me, it gets a lot harder to re-sign those guys once you sign a quarterback to the big bucks, which is what they're going to have to do this offseason to keep one of those 3, or they're going to have to go with a rookie and take a step back again. So those are my final thoughts. Minnesota, you blew it, essentially. Your championship window closed, and I'm so happy. Go, Pack, go.
It's funny. My final thought is almost kind of similar. I just want to give a shout out to my Eagles. Everyone.
Thank you, Eagles.
Everyone had you finished after Wentz went down.
I did too.
Especially, Nick Foles played less than inspiring football the rest of the year, but team never stopped believing. Defense stepped up. Nick Foles stepped up. Doug Peterson stepped up. Now Philly is 1 win away from their biggest win in franchise history, and it's honestly insane to me. I was praying for a 10-6 season this year. I just wanted them to go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Most of my friends had them between 7-9 and 9-7.
I think I came to you one day in the offseason and just said, Philly might win 10 games this year. And you were like, yeah, dude, this is why.
Yeah. They would have went 14-2 if they had to. They could have beat Dallas week 17. They sat all the starters. They would have went 14-2. That means they have a potential to win. They could have won 17 games this year or 16 games this year. Makes me really happy. Over the past 4 months, I've been so happy because this team's been doing so well. I can say the team, I mentioned it earlier, is so supremely confident right now. And like I said, that's huge when you're going up against the Patriots. And, after that defensive and offensive thrashing against the Vikings, I think they're licking their chops right now to play the Patriots. They're excited.
I'm going to be cheering for them hard. I know you're a big Eagles fan. One of my other friends from college is a big Eagles fan. Armand, who we used to work with at Chick-fil-A, huge Eagles fan. Armand, if you're listening, shout out to you. I'll be cheering for the Eagles. I got a lot of friends who are Eagles fans. I hope they get it done.
Go Birds, baby.
All right, so that'll do it for us. That'll do it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed our show. I honestly feel like this might have been our best show yet. Maybe not. Who knows? But next week is probably going to be all NFL, just talking about the Super Bowl. Looking forward to that. So, James, I will talk to you. I'm going to talk to you before then, but see you next week.
See you later, buddy.